Great. All right, good evening, everyone. This is a regular meeting of the
Writings I've seen.
This is a regular meeting of the Programs and Services Committee. It is Wednesday, April 9th. Hopefully everyone has the agenda in front of them. At the beginning of the meeting, in the room, I am Josh Princeman, Chair of the committee, Councilor at Large from Ward 4. We're joined by Councilor John Oliver, Ward 1, Councilor at Large, Councilor Stephen Farrell from Ward 8. Also online, we have Vice Chair of the committee, Councilor Bill Humphrey from Ward 5, and Councilor Pam Wright. Our new clerk, who we are delighted to have, Katie Holden. Welcome. We will miss Jacqueline, but Katie, welcome. I'm sure you will do a fantastic job. Welcome to Programs and Services. You're really going to enjoy it here. We're also joined by
we are the most fun of any of
all the committees.
Yeah.
The most fun. We've been voted most fun 3 years in a row by ourselves. Yeah. We're also joined by Commissioner Ciparello and Chief McMahon in the room. First item on our agenda is item 4725, the appointment of Rabbi Keith Stern as a Newton Library trustee. Come up here and join us. Traditionally, what we do is give you you've been through this, not for this position, but you've been through this. So I'll give you an opportunity to tell us why it is that you're interested in this position. We've seen your resume. I hope we've all read that. But just for a couple minutes, tell us why you're interested. I'll then open it up to the members of the council to ask questions, and then we'll proceed to a vote probably. So with that, tell us why you're interested in being a Newton Library trustee. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. Let me just say that we've been joined by Councilor David Mickley, another member of the committee. Go ahead, Rabbi Stern. I'm sorry about that.
It's really an honor to sit here with you and to come before this group. I have always loved books, and some of my earliest and most profound memories is as a little kid hanging out. And I grew up in Middletown, Connecticut. And, there was a great Russell Library that a very wealthy family made their money on. Silk and Opium bought a failing church and made this extraordinary library that I hung out in all the time. And I felt like the notion that as a child I could go, I could look, I could learn, I could choose the books that interested me, and there was no limit. There wasn't even a limit on how many books I could take out. It really sparked my sense of discovery, of exploration, and really built for me a sense of identity. So there's that very personal part. Another part of it is that I've lived in Newton now for 29 years, and I have the first part of my career in the center was very insular. It was really very much kind of taking care of my community. But as time has gone on, I have felt that I wanted to give more of my time and attention to the city itself, ways that I might be able to make a difference. And consequently, was honored to be the head commissioner of the Human Rights Commission and to learn the difference people can make. It ain't easy, the work of any sort of commissioner committee, but the dedication to making this community a better place than when I came is my abiding wish. And I would say now more than ever, that a person who loves books, a person who loves the acquisition of knowledge, a public library as a place with a proliferation of ideas and books, and here I use the word diversity, really for me is fundamental to a thriving city and to a thriving nation for that matter. And I am very much interested in preserving the long tradition of the Newton Public Library in our community, and to serve in any way that I can in decision making, in tough issues, and just in the preservation, and not just preservation, but also in the flourishing and the ongoing evolution of all institutions that has to occur. And certainly in a library, it's even more the case. I really want to dedicate myself to that work of representing the library, helping the library grow, defending the rights of the citizens who use the library as a place to learn and to be entertained and to flourish.
Fantastic, thank you. Appreciate that. Want to mention that we've been joined by Councilor Julian Maliki and Councilor Lyle Baker, also members of the committee. I will see if there are any questions. I will say that thank you for willing to. You're currently a member of the Human Rights Commission as well, right?
Yes.
Appreciate all that you do for the city. Your letter was amazing. It almost read a little bit like some of the best sermons I've ever been through. It does. I mean that in a good way. You know, sometimes they're the good ones, and sometimes they're the like, oh, we should have left before the sermon instead. But you know, this is one of the good ones. So I will be supporting your nomination. Let me just see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I'm happy to hear from Councilor Humphrey. Okay, Councilor Farrell.
Well, in contrast to the chair, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't come more prepared to be thoughtful and eloquent. Wonderful. Very excited to meet you.
Likewise.
And thank you for your service. And I will say this very morning, a dear friend from Brookline said he couldn't wait to get over to Newton to go to the library. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilor Oliver.
Great, thank you. I'll start by saying thank you for your continued eagerness to serve. That is noteworthy and exemplary. So thank you for that. Can you just I am curious. Honeywell Ave, Ward 1, Newton Corner?
Yes.
Yes, great, super. That was my way of very, very slyly.
The application says Ward 5.
Yeah, I noticed that, but Honeywell.
It's Ward 1, yeah.
Screams right Newton Corner, right?
Right.
Yes. Okay, great. Just wanted to double
So-
check.
So the moral of this story from the committee is don't believe what you read.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Great.
Just
So
check,
when the
okay.
time comes.
Yeah.
I'm happy to move.
Thank you. That's sort of the protocol.
Makes sense. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Councilor Oliver has moved
Motion to
approval.
approve?
Councilor Oliver has moved approval. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay, I think you're familiar with the process. It goes to the full city council at the next council meeting in a week and a half, whatever that is. You don't have to be there for it, and I would expect no trouble with the full council approving the nomination. You're welcome to leave tonight, or as you've seen, we have a great deal of fun. You're also welcome to stay and enjoy the festivities.
I think I have to prepare my Passover meal, but I want to thank all of you, and I really do look forward to serve in this new way.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's wonderful of you being willing to do that.
You put an orange on your Seder plate?
I don't, but
You don't?
we were just talking. Yeah, no, we won't do that one. So I do love one.
Next, Councilor Baker.
No, it's good. I'll have a sidebar comment. I'll catch him on the way down.
Next item is item 7925. This is the appointment of Michelle Howard Sparks to the Institutional Biosafety Committee. As you heard, the process is what it is. We'll ask you to say a couple words about why you're interested in this. And then I'll open it up to folks for questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm Michelle Howard Sparks, and unlike Rabbi Stern, this is the first time I've ever been through this process. And so if I don't hear protocol, please forgive me. I did not submit a cover letter on why I would like to be a part of this committee, and I want to thank the Programs and Services Committee for having me on the docket tonight after being nominated by Allison Mary and Mark Grado for serving on the Institutional Biosafety Committee. I have a PhD in medicinal chemistry. I have been in the pharmaceutical industry for 25 plus years. Understand the importance and the impact we can potentially have on the environment, both in a good way and a bad way, if not regulated appropriately. I've worked closely with environmental health and safety services within the pharmaceutical industry over the course of my 25 years, and feel that I have the opportunity now with this nomination to utilize my background to serve the community where I live. I've lived here in Newton for 15 years. I've been friends with some of the council members for the full 15 years I've been here. and have always been interested in giving back to the community and seeing how she serves as a counselor, and being involved with her and hearing how everyone she's going to help out in this group together. So would like to dip my toe into the water of serving the city.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It is an impressive resume. Not everyone has to submit a letter, so don't feel that that was any deficiency on your behalf.
Or a sermon for that.
I do not have to word like a rabbi.
Excuse me. Are there any questions from members of the committee? I believe you're also a member of Ward 1,
Yes,
correct? Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, so just-
Yes, Kentucky.
Might
Yes, I went through Kentucky.
Councilor Baker, do you have a question?
Oh,
Sounds like
what,
you do.
what county?
That's a question.
Davis, okay, all right, well, we'll talk after this.
Davies.
A lot of places underwater,
That one a little bit.
There are,
in Jefferson County, but anyway, that's,
and they are having a lot of flooding.
they have a lot.
I will just mention to folks that Councilor Leary did stop by earlier. Councilor Leary is very supportive of this nomination as well. And she wanted us to at least be aware of that. Sorry. Councilor Oliver.
Great, thank you, Chair. My only question really is institutional biosafety.
Mhm.
What work is generally entailed there? How does the committee, like what work is the committee undertaking to prevent the bad side and promote the good side, if you will, of the impacts that you described?
I do not know of their current agenda and what they're serving on, but in looking through the backgrounds of what other cities are doing on institutional biosafety, really has to do with bio DNA, any of the tissues, animal tissues, human tissues, and how they're disposed of. In the biohazards, could be any bloodborne pathogens. I would think that it also goes into other materials that are used that might have an environmental impact, be it solvents or small molecules, how potent they are and how much you need to protect and what amounts you can be exposed to without damaging either people or the environment. That's what I assume.
Sure. That assumption sounds right on.
I'm not gonna argue.
Right, yeah. No way, I'm parking. No way. But when the time comes, Chair,
I think it's time.
also very happy to move approval. And
Councilor,
thank you, if I didn't say this, for your willingness
This
to
is a
serve.
surprise, but
Can I just,
sure, Councilor Dunphy.
I wanted to say how impressed I am with your resume, and I was trying to figure out how old you are to have done all that research and
Sure.
drug development. And biosafety committee is one of those, I think it's come up when there was maybe gonna be bio at Riverside and
Yep.
stuff like that. And is this the kind of committee that just sort of meets when something comes up, or do you know if is there a regular meeting scheduled?
I don't know, and I hope to find out very soon what their agenda and their
Okay,
programs.
well, I think your background is gonna add to it greatly, and
I heard the meetings were Monday through Friday from. Is that not?
7 AM, yeah, I'm curious, and this is not a Newton problem because we thankfully get our water from the MWRA, but I know there's a big issue with, basically the drugs that go through people's system and into their urine and out into septic or whatever, and it gets back into other people's drinking supplies. Is there any effort in the industry to sort of figure out ways to get whether it's birth control pills or whatever else, cancer drugs or whatever else people are taking, to get that out of water that is going to be consumed by people?
It's a good question, and I would love to give a very thoughtful answer to that. Having some exposure to toxicology in my background, the body's job generally is to break down toxic substance into less toxic and more soluble substances before they're eliminated from the body. In that case, that being said, that's not always the case, and some things like hormones can't go through unpassed or unchanged. I don't know that there's a big industry movement to control or modify that. I think that's probably something that we all need to be monitoring and making sure that we are doing what we need to protect our waterways and our land exposure. But it's not something I'm well versed in as far as people taking medicines and what the after effects are of those. My experience has mostly been with the facilities and what types of tissues or molecules or how they control what they are handling within the facilities.
There's worker safety. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, what you can and cannot and how you dispose of.
And I suppose, I don't know that we have many biotech production facilities in Newton, but we have colleges and they might be using.
There are a lot more than you would imagine. I don't know necessarily in Newton, but in Watertown, absolutely. Waltham, absolutely. I think Newton is getting there. I think there are more and more labs that are being built here all the time.
Yeah,
We
we certainly like to have more business, I think. Yeah.
It's
And Chapel Street, if I recall.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Bridge, or-
And not only that, there's also Leahy that just came into the Riverworks facility right on the Charles River there. And so a lot of that, I think there's a lot more popping up, and each of those facilities, even all the hospitals and medical labs, have human tissue that may have an impact on the environment as well.
Try to attend a biosafety meeting when that happens. Doesn't without video.
I'll be glad to share an age of virgin.
That's okay.
I've always
21.
I found that very helpful.
Yeah.
Safety.
Fair enough. Counselor Oliver has moved approval.
Yes.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Any abstentions? All right, it is unanimous. Again, it will go to the full city council in a week and a half.
Thank you.
You can watch online if you're curious, but I would expect it to go through without a problem.
Very good.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
And if there's anything we can do for you, Councilor Malik needs you.
An agenda for the idea. Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is item 71-25. This is a recommendation to approve the 2025 preliminary election date. If I'm not mistaken, that's why Mr. Doyle is here, who's joining us online. Mr. Doyle, I'm happy to let you tell us why September 9th is the appropriate date.
Thank you, Chair. Let me just share my screen here. Get my PowerPoint fired up. Nope. All right, so this is for the fall 2025 municipal election dates. We'll start with the November election. So that election date is actually already set through us through MGL. So that will be November 4th, 2025 will be November. And like I said, there's no wiggle room. It's that one is uniform throughout every municipality in the state. So that will be November 4th this year. And 2 weeks ago, the election commission on April 1st, so last week actually, recommended 3-0 with Commissioner McDermott not being able to attend. That's why it's 3-0, not 4-0. They recommended September 9, 2025 as the date of the September municipal primary. So the primary will only occur if there's more than double. The wording is always tricky, but it's more than double the amount of eligible seats on the ballot. So if 5 or more people run for an at-large position, that triggers a preliminary. If 3 or more run for either school committee or ward councilor, that triggers a preliminary. And for mayor this year, 3 or more will trigger a preliminary. So that's why it's an if necessary, because at the moment we don't know yet. Nomination papers become available on May 5th, by the way. That's my plug for the night. So the election commission reviewed 3 dates in September for the possible election. They ended up choosing, like I said, Tuesday, September 9th. Tuesday, September 2nd is the day after Labor Day, and have it being right after a holiday leaves us a little bit stretched logistically and resource wise. We work with other departments, and that's harder to do when it's the day after a long weekend. And Tuesday, September 16th was another day. However, the commission felt that this day didn't leave the elections department, the city clerk's office, with enough turnaround time to select the ballot order and get the ballots printed and send out the vote by mail ballots for all the folks who applied for one. So that's where they went with the 9th. It's kind of the perfect in between of those two dates. There's enough lead time. It's not right after Labor Day. So that is their recommendation. Happy to field any questions, comments.
Thank you very much, Council Baker.
I think Boston chose the same day, didn't it? I seem to
What?
recall. the
I'm
ninth.
not sure. I can check tomorrow. It wouldn't shock me if they did. It's a pretty good date.
Makes sense.
Any questions? Any members of the? Okay, I'm not seeing any concern. I don't think we're gonna have a concern with the date. I just want to ask, I think I know the answer to this question. But President Trump wrote an executive order about preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections. I am very familiar with the fact that executive orders don't do anything in and of themselves, but they usually direct agencies to do certain things. My question to you is, have we, as a city, gotten any different or distinct direction either from the federal government or the state about the operation of our municipal election in November that would cause us to do anything differently at this point?
No, we have not. So I am aware of that executive order as well. But like you said, until we hear something from the state or federal government, which we haven't yet, then it'll be business as usual for City of Newton.
Okay, that's exactly what I suspected, but wanted to confirm. Thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm happy to, Councilor Maliki?
I was just curious, so I see, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are way late, it seems like they're late this year in September. Are there any plans for the early voting on the preliminary, or can we not do that?
We haven't picked those dates yet. We were gonna, get the date of the preliminary set first, and then I'll meet with the election commission, get the recommendation for early voting dates, and we'll do this again. Probably in, I don't know, June, I think is when we did it last time, maybe May or June. So sometime around then, I'm sure is when we'll set the dates, but I'll know more about that tomorrow when I go in the office and check the archives of when we did it in 2023.
Yeah, I forget the calendar. I can't remember if we set those dates presuming we'll need a preliminary, or if we wait until we know whether we'll need a preliminary before we set the early voting dates. I know we need to set them, but I don't remember when we do it.
We set those dates before we know if we need one. We just do it as an if necessary for the early voting dates. Yeah.
Otherwise, if you wait until July,
Papers are due.
something.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay, thanks. So I'm happy to move approval of September 9th. Any discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any abstentions? Okay. That one is done. Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. Have a good night.
Good night. Next item on our agenda is item 55-25. This is a resolution to recognize the Newton Cultural Council. We have Mr. Fritz Pitts here. You want to talk to us about that and explain? There was the material in the packet explaining why this is necessary or recommended. I shouldn't say necessary, but why this is
The
advisable.
short answer was that, in fact, we have a lot of paper here. Well, I just set in motion all the local cultural councils in the state.
Well, I didn't, it wasn't my idea, but I helped get them, help preserve them, and actually help preserve their arts funding in the Commonwealth. I can tell that story.
So jumping fast forward, all of these cultural councils, there's like 260 or something like that across the whole state. We get a portion from the state, from the Mass Cultural Council, as well as direction to be fair and build out the money. And that's what we've been doing all this time. And
I became aware that the National Endowment of the Arts had a program that allowed to do matching funds and to do sub-granting, which basically meant you're a passer, which the Newton Cultural Council is a pass-through organization. Nobody gets paid, nobody, there's no skill, there's nothing, the money comes. This mayor's matched the funds that come from the state, so it ends up being about 50K. And we dole it out to the best we can. And actually, I've seen the Cultural Council, while I was on it for 6 years, really some fine people that put in way more work than anybody would think to do about these grants. But, it was like a jury. It's a jury. And we wanted to feel confident about our decisions. And so we put in a process. Anyways, we discovered that the naming of the council in the original days was entirely different than the Newton Cultural Council. It was something commission, arts commission, whatever. The National Endowment, I don't know if any of you have gone for a National Endowment of the Arts grant, but it's serious rickets. I mean, just even getting to apply, you have to go through .gov application process. Then you have to come up with very serious times. And we spent about 6 of us to spend. Anyways, we discovered that we were
Even now, I mean, I'm sure this administration bumped up the staff there and
I think now it's going to be, I don't know. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen to the NEA, but hopefully that there'll be something there.
hopefully that exists. Yeah, I hear you.
Maybe, that people will value it. So in case we want to be able to apply, when we applied, we found out that we and all kinds of councils across the state were ineligible because we weren't formed by the city itself. We were formed by the state, and the city itself, well, the state, has made these councils. That's good enough for us. But the NEA, in its infinite wisdom, had decided that there needed to be formal recognition of the council itself as the Newton Cultural Council. So this confusion really shut us out of a potential $50,000 grant. And so I'd like to undo that, and that's what this one.
And so the resolution, for folks who don't have page 18 of their packets in front of them, I'll just read you the two now, therefore be it resolved clauses. That Newton City Council formally recognizes the Newton Cultural Council as the Cultural Affairs Commission of the City of Newton. And the Newton City Council supports the Newton Cultural Council in its application for grants from the National Endowment for the Arts. Any comments, questions?
I think we need it. Can you repeat the cultural affairs part? What was it called?
The Newton City Council formally recognizes the Newton Cultural Council as the Cultural Affairs Commission of the City of Newton.
Thank you. Okay.
That'll pass muster at the federal level.
Yes. The language, I reached out to 3 different cities that the NEA told me. We had meetings with the NEA about this. I said, this city in Florida did it, this city in Michigan did it, and this city somewhere else did it. So I reached out to all of them, and they all came up with this language. Said you just need to have that.
If it was Kentucky, you'd have Council Baker.
We would have been.
Okay, seeing no discussion, I'm happy to move approval. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
So can I just
Chris nailed it.
report it briefly? What happened many years ago, there was a proposal to create an arts lottery, which would be just for the arts, like the state lottery. There's a $5 ticket. It didn't raise much money. It raised $250,000. And but there was a question about how it was going to get allocated. I was counsel to the Arts Lottery Council at the state, and the idea was creating these local cultural councils, which were created, and then the Mass Council on Arts and Humanities merged with the Mass Cultural, became the Mass Cultural Council, but came under attack because it was taking care of the big institutions, and the little cultural councils around the state came to its defense and basically saved the state funding because it was a local program, and a lot of legislators had local programs to worry about. So it was, that's a oversimplified summary of a long conversation, but anyway, so this is really an important part of our historic and cultural fabric. Delighted to know that you-
Well, thank you. And being on the other end, I've been a recipient of grants from the Newton Cultural Council of the state. And I mean, it goes a long way. You know, if you want to see a buck well spent, give it to an artist. They will stretch it. And the Newton Kano Summer Hoop, which you just had, our most successful season yet, was got a nice grant from the NCC. So it's very helpful.
All right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your notices about events too. I really think that.
Oh, good, good. Well, it's always good to see you guys there and anybody and get your culture on. So, all right. Now.
All right,
Have a great night.
our final item of the evening is item 90-24. This is requesting an update on leaf blower landscaper registration and enforcement ordinance. As folks of this committee very well know by now, from time to time, we deal with the leaf blower ordinance. And from time to time, we've started to sort of receive updates and get a sense of how things are going, especially in terms of enforcement. Calls start to come in. Website probably gets more traffic come spring, et cetera. So we like to hear from you guys how things are going. So however I know we have the written materials, which are helpful, really helpful to see all that you guys get, and all the enforcement action. But anything you guys want to present to us in terms of how you think the ordinance is working and what's going on?
I think the ordinance is working. Every year, we seem to get more and more applicants to register. And in 2022, from 108 to last year, which is our highest, which we had 352 registrants. This year, so far, registration opened up on April 1st. And to date, or to this morning, we had 202. So that seems to be going well. Always seeing the landscapers come to the counter and registering, so that's a good sign. Just driving to work and driving around the city whenever I do get a chance to get out. I do see them using mostly the proper blowers. In fact, I was at City Hall, it was last week, I was in my office and I could hear blowers going on in the city. They were over at the library. So it just sounded loud to me. So I actually got up and walked across the street and they were compliant. So I had no problem with them. Just continue on.
So you didn't call it in?
I did not call it in. No need. But we did have 12 complaints so far this year. Chuck Edrahai started on April 1st. So he's out patrolling for the anybody who's not conforming. We've got 7 complaints, written complaints. He's written 2 tickets and has issued 1 warning so far. We are also getting ready to go to court for criminal complaint on, I think, six landscapers who have not paid from last year and who are currently suspended.
Registration fees or fines?
Fines. Yeah. All in excess of $600. Some as high as probably $4,000. These were the same landscapers that when we went to our probable cause hearing, we had given them a chance to do a payment system. With the clerk magistrate, I said it was okay as long as they paid. The city attorney made up the deal for them, and unfortunately, they either didn't pay or fell through or whatever. So now it's for a criminal complaint.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Of the fines that were levied, how many, if any, were levied on homeowners?
There weren't many levied on homeowners, I believe, last year. I think we were trying to be a little considerate to homeowners because that was the first time we were going to really start getting them involved with fines. I believe we leave knockers on their doors whenever there is a violation, or maybe they were compliant. I don't think we leave anything if they were compliant. But if there was a violation or a warning was given, we usually leave a bright green door knocker.
Yeah.
And there was a check boxes on it, and will check off what was either, if a citation was given, or if there was a warning given, or, you know, were there 2 violations or whatever, and,
So, I mean, my recollection is.
yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the homeowner is liable if and only if.
Yeah.
The landscaper does not appear on the list of having properly registered
Mhm.
with the city.
Mhm.
I'd be curious to know how many of the fines were levied against companies that were registered. And how many of them were levied against companies that were not properly registered, so homeowners would have been potentially liable, but the enforcement decision was made not to cite
okay,
them.
I'm not sure if we can actually track that, but, I can look into it.
Okay,
Okay,
Yeah.
so basically you wanna find out, if homeowners were fined, right?
I'm just, yeah, I'm curious to know. Again, I don't wanna impose my discretion for yours. I don't wanna say you should or shouldn't be finding them. I think we did the right thing by giving you the discretion to
Right.
find them, you know, in the appropriate circumstances. I'm curious to see how it's playing out on the ground, you know, if there are decisions not to find those households, and
Okay,
if we track those, because then you might see, you know, if you have repeat offenders from households that just go to, you know, different landscapers who aren't registered, I
okay,
would wanna know that.
okay,
Does that make sense?
okay, yeah.
Councilor Baker?
And to follow on the chair's question, if there are landscapers who are suspended, that seems to me, I think, I recall, were treated as the same as unregistered. Because then the property owner would be liable in that context.
Mhm.
And it does seem to me that if you've got people who have violated multiple times so that they're suspended, because you have
Two
two
violations.
violations, that having the homeowner not just warned, but in those cases, it may produce a better result in terms of compliance. If the homeowners gets a ticket because someone is, you know, not just failed to register, but they've basically been in violation.
Right.
It's saying, you realize that you're using somebody who's violating the law, and therefore we have to either that or the door knocker, I think, needs to really inform people of the exposure so they can turn around to the company and say, wait a minute, guys, what, I don't want to get fined.
Well, I think that's the whole idea of that door knocker. So
Right.
once they, you know, once we do give them a violation or a warning, but we're letting the homeowner know, like, hey, you're on notice.
Yeah.
Your guy wasn't registered, or, you know, however it was, and we do check that box to let them know what the violation was. And we do often get calls from the homeowners saying, oh, I didn't know,
Right.
you know, Chuck will talk to the homeowner and let them know and say, hey, you know, he wasn't
Yeah.
registered, and he also was using a louder decibel blower than he was supposed to.
Well, I guess the point I'm getting around to, though, is we want two things to happen. The homeowners who call you and you give that information to, but you say, what do you do? And so when you say, look, when you get your bill from the landscaper, either put a note in it or do something, we want to try and, this is compliance oriented. It's not trying to be punitive,
Mhm.
but also to give them something to do, because if they are, unless people are ultimately going to pay the bill themselves, I don't know if that is going to do much good on the landscaper side unless they feel exposed. So I hope that you can think about if there are cases, and you would want to be, this is a case of discretion, obviously. Look at your pattern, and if you find that you've got a particular landscaper who's a violator and a particular site that's a violator, that you write a ticket to that homeowner and say, look, we don't like to do this, but this is showing up. And
We will write a ticket to that homeowner if they are in violation, if they fall into that. So typically what we like to do is ease into things. Like the first year with the blowers, it was supposed to be 2. We allowed them 4 violations, okay? Just to get them into the, you know, into the rhythm of this is what you're supposed to be doing. Last year, we held it firm at 2, and this year we're gonna hold it firm for homeowners this year.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. The other question, again, I'll let you to other colleagues, but I have other questions. Okay, so the chief, part of the value that you bring to this conversation is that it's your office that gets most of the calls, although there can things go through the web, but and there are a few people that have Mr. Edwards' contact information, but most of the time it comes through to combined dispatch.
Sure.
And when my understanding is that if he is on duty, the calls almost go to him right away because he's the specialist available for that purpose, and it doesn't take time away from the patrols. But if he's not available, I think it's one of the things I think is so important is that not nights, but weekends and other times when he is not on duty because his schedule is only part-time, that you all have the ability and the inclination to back up his work because we don't want to be dependent only on him. Ultimately, we want to get everybody in compliance, not raise fines. This is not a revenue process, but we want to have your team involved. Can you comment a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This year, again, we've had 11 calls so far this year, again, before April 1st. So our officers did indeed respond. One of the issues that have been kind of prolific for years is that we stack these calls, right? We're not going to send one car to two-car section to do a leaf blower violation because two cars tied up in a domestic violence situation. We want to keep that sector car available to respond to calls in that sector. So a significant number, 8 of our calls this year, nobody was there when we got there. So our general response time is 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Some of the leaf blower calls are 10 minutes old. By the time somebody calls us and we get there, those leaf blowers are gone. That's not always the best way to do it, but again, we think prioritizing other calls for service, especially in divisions that are, if the sector car is tied up in 2-car, West Newton, for instance, we're not going to send 3-car or 1-car to that call because what if something comes in Newton Corner and now we have our 1-car tied up in West Newton and now who do we send to Newton Corner? So those are some of the issues that we pop up with. Last year, we responded to 138 calls for service. We got 138 calls. We responded to 96. The same thing. By the time we got there, it looks like 52 people, nothing showing. So we get to these calls, and there's oftentimes no.
But how many tickets have your team written? You know,
this year we've written one ticket. Last year we wrote 2 citations. We wrote 6 verbal warnings. Reading through ISD's report thing here, you see, I guess one officer said that they have discretion. We've talked about this before, right? I can't tell my officers to write a ticket. There's a Mass Supreme Court that says we can't tell them to write a ticket. We can tell them to go talk to those people and enforce the law, but we can't tell them they have to write a ticket.
Well, I guess it's important though to me, and I guess I fully understand that part of it. But Mr. Edrahay has the ability and the inclination. And I would like to have the officers have the same inclination because I would hate for the landscapers to think, well, this is the police, I don't have to worry about them. I just have to wait till Mr. Edrahay's around and I can monitor the city communication system and find out where he is and when he's there. And in the meantime, I'm just going to use, what I want. And so I personally have seen in earlier times where the police have shown up and been quite effective and said, look, that's not a compliant blower. And you call the owner, and meanwhile there's some brakes in your truck that work just fine. And that is
right. And I hope this doesn't get back to my troops, but I miss Chuck Edrahay.
That's great.
Some of our newer officers are more like Chuck. They're writing citations. They're out doing their job. Not that the other ones aren't, but that generation of cop is not there anymore, right? We don't have cops who just go out and write tickets all day long. And not that was Chuck Edrahay's only job, but when he was in traffic in the police department, that's what he did. He wrote tickets like he's supposed to, right? And it's unfortunate that we have this issue now with immigration, and this is coming up. This comes up from a bunch of emails I've gotten. I've spoken to a few city councilors where the police show up, especially nowadays with this administration. Are we targeting landscapers who may have immigration status issues, right? And I hear that day in and day out from a few of our officers. They don't want to be roped into being pictures taken of them talking to landscapers who maybe aren't white, right? Or their immigration status may be in question. We've never asked a landscaper for any type of immigration issues. We've never asked them for passports, any of that, those things. But it's I won't say it's a problem, but it could be a problem.
Well, I think that the advantage, again, of this regime is that the ticket goes to the owner of the company, not to the landscape. So it's almost a case where I've understood Mr. Enright doesn't have to have a conversation, you know, he observes the equipment and I've gotten, I don't know about the rest of you, but I can pretty well tell, like, most of the time whether somebody's using a Red Max or doing.
Yeah. I can tell you that we've had several occasions where Chuck has written tickets. And obviously he gives it to the worker who's there, who is usually not the owner of the company.
Yeah.
And what has happened is that the worker actually pays that ticket out of his own pocket in fear of getting fired. And then what happens is, so we have it down as the company getting a ticket. Now, the owner of that company does not know he has a ticket. And then we fine him again, end up fining them again. And now they're suspended. And the owner's like, no, we only have 1 ticket. No, we have record of 2 tickets. But sometimes the workers will pay in order to almost negate the ticket and pay it themselves in fear of losing their job. And that's been an issue.
Well, I'm sorry that.
A few times.
But, you know, hope that, I guess the point I'm going to get is we're really trying to get at compliance. And we've seen some scofflaw companies. Who, and some of them even monitored the police frequencies so that they know when you're coming and all of that. So to the
Working on
extent.
changing that to encrypt our channel so people won't know. Not for that reason, but for.
Yeah.
But I think the point is that if you don't have to do a lot because they talk to each other. If the police began to start writing some tickets, the word will get around. And the whole point of this is to avoid you guys having to get the calls to begin with. So it is, I think, to the extent that you can have a conversation with your patrol folks, say, look, we're interested in trying to do some selective enforcement that sends a message so we get less calls.
Right.
You
And
know?
I've had that conversation with our union, and depending on which union member I speak to, e-board member, I get a different response. So one thing I do want to add that we have recently started using the services of LexisNexis to map crimes for motor vehicle crashes, for bicycle crashes. Mike, I will send this to you folks too. Mike Bozio put together a map of all the leaf blowers from last year, all the locations. So I'm happy to share that with you folks afterwards.
Okay, that'd be interesting. I noticed going down the list that there are certain sites that seem to regenerate a complaint on a regular basis.
I mean, it's the map's tiny, but it's everywhere. So,
Somebody.
Okay,
Sorry, apologies, guys.
Councilor Mitchell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. No, great line of questioning, Councilor Baker. So just a comment and question. First, just a comment in response to the conversation that Councilor Baker was facilitating there. Definitely think enforcement is important. Definitely think compliance is important, but also really value and recognize that the police force has a lot of other responsibilities in keeping Newton safe and keeping Newton secure and patrolling all those areas. And, you know, I think this goes without saying. I think we all, at least I for sure, see that as a higher priority over enforcement over leaf blower violations for the police force. So, you know, at least my perspective is to keep prioritizing those kind of fundamental roles that the police has been doing so well in Newton. You know, part of the success is not just what we see, but also what we don't see, and the crime that doesn't happen because of the patrol that's all across the city. So I guess I just wanted to say I support your approach, Chief, into keeping that as a priority rather than allowing leaf blower enforcement distract the, you know, people in the Newton police force from those duties and responsibilities. Having said that, I have heard from a resident that they've reached out with leaf blower incidents and by the time someone comes, no one's there. So I'm just curious, maybe this is a question for the Commissioner, Chicarello. What guidance can we give residents like that if they record a video, if they have some other evidence of it? Is there a way that they can help enforce things when situations where someone just doesn't get there in time?
The best thing they can do is call, leave a message for Chuck Edrahai. He has also he has an email. He also has his phone, and state the day and time that the landscapers were at whatever location. And what Chuck does is the following week, or if he knows what day it is and what time roughly it's going to be, he'll park his car somewhere in the neighborhood and he'll wait for the landscapers to show. And he's actually caught quite a few doing it that way. And because a lot of times if you're calling him to come out right now, again, just like the chief had said, by the time you get there, he could be on the other side of the city. By the time he gets there, they may be gone. He's basically patrolling the city with his windows down, listening, is the way he does it mostly. But if there is a complaint, somebody said, hey, they're out there at Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock over on, Cherry Street, and they give an address, he'll go out and he'll wait.
Okay, thank you. And does evidence with a camera recording of the kind of someone recording the level of the sound help for enforcement, or does there have to be an in-person citation?
It needs to be in person. Recording with an iPhone is really not very good quality. So we don't really record sound. These machines have tags on them. Okay. So if it's going to be a machine that is compliant, it'll have a 65 decibel reading on it. We don't do sound readings. So typically, all of them have to have a tag on it. So Red Maxes, which are usually the more powerful, which is what the landscapers were using more often than not, are all non-compliant machines. And visibly, if they're red, they're typically a Red Max, but Chuck does need to check the tag. If the tag has been removed, it's a violation.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could just comment quickly, Counselor, I appreciate your statements. We're not saying that leaf blower is not important to the new police department, right? It's we have to prioritize things, but any complaint by a citizen is a complaint to us. We have to take that seriously. So we're not minimizing any of this. We just have to prioritize and make sure we're available for other things.
If I can just comment in response to my colleague, I agree in the general matter. The difference between some of the public safety responses, which are episodic, here the police are part of a pattern to try and get compliance. So really, it may benefit the long term because more and more people get compliant, then they get less calls and the whole process works. We would love to reduce your revenue, Commissioner, down to just the process of registration rather than violation. One of the questions, though, is the data sharing. Now that you've got some degree to which you can put this information together, so that it's not just dependent on Chuck's phone call logs, but if you can sort of say, okay, we're seeing the complaint from this area, this day, this time, so Chuck can actually go out, and the police, on occasion, when he can't be there, could do the same, would be, I think, really helpful. Can you comment a little bit about your data sharing now that you've got some ability to do that?
Data sharing with the police?
Well, yeah, but if he can take the map, and I assume you have somebody who can do data management. What we're interested in is finding either patterns in the data that you're getting for complaints, even if people are gone, because Councilor Mickley was talking about trying to preserve a record. But if you can take your data, both your data, and put them together so that the police know what to look for, some sort of hot spots, for want of a better term, or noisy spots at that point of time and day or location. And the same for Mr. Edrahai. it may enhance your compliance again because you're doing a little more active rather than reactive.
Right. I can tell you that the landscapers, they're pretty wise, and they know if they keep going to the same spot every time at the same day, they know that Chuck, how he works. And so what they'll do is they'll mix it up too. Chuck will work Saturdays sometimes. And just because they think that he won't be working on a Saturday because he's just a regular 5 day a weeker or whatever, he'll work a Saturday here and there just to mix it up. But the landscapers themselves, they realize that they have to mix it up too. So unfortunately, trying to
It's a little cat and mouse.
it really is. It really is.
I understand. But I think the point is that the advantage you have is that you do have a data set that can properly analyze, may yield you some opportunities to be active rather than reactive.
Yeah.
And I just urge you to do that.
I can check and see. I can see the chief's little map there. Those are all for blowers, right, Chief?
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah. So I can check with the NewGov system, which may be able to pinpoint where these violations are on a map. I can talk to, Ms. Finnemore and
And
find out
time,
if I
and
can
not
get
just
that.
location, but time and day, because,
Time of day might be difficult, but
well, I mean,
we could try.
we got an IT department here, it's very skilled folks in it. They might be able to do some dance steps for you. Just depends on what the fields look like in your spreadsheet.
Okay.
So I just encourage you that I'm sorry, I'm talking other questions.
Okay. Councilor Farrell, did you have a question?
Okay.
Okay. Councilor Malcolm.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I noticed on the list of registrations last year, a lot of them don't seem to register until like June even, like later in the year.
Yeah, I mean,
What are they doing earlier in the year?
what are they doing earlier in the year? I can't answer that. I mean, they register when they register.
Yeah,
We open registration typically 1st of April,
okay,
okay?
and,
End of March, beginning of April.
okay, and, I can't remember now, April 1 is when they can start using leaf blowers?
They can use, once they register, they can start using.
Okay,
Yeah.
but can they use them in March?
Yes, they could.
Okay.
Yep.
And is March still covered by the previous year's registration?
No, that typically ends at the,
Is it calendar year? thing?
it's not, typically it ends when the first snow comes. Okay, and then they typically stop at that point in time. And then it picks up again March, depending upon how much snow we get, how late the snow is out, is when they'll start using the blowers again, registering.
Okay,
It was a little late registering this year because we had some something with the system we had to get squared away. There were a couple of things, I forget, I don't know exactly what it was, but we had to work some things out. And then we got that all squared away, and then we started registration immediately. The landscapers were knocking on our door, basically, hey, we want to register, we want to register.
and is so, whatever time of year somebody registers, is that good for 12 months from that date?
No,
Or is
it's
it
just
the
good for
calendar
that
year
season.
thing? That season
Yeah.
being? March,
25, so if they
Count-
registered
basically
in
a
July
calendar year, yeah.
of 25, say there was just a new landscaping company, got a new bid to work in Newton, they found out that they had to register their blowers. If they registered in June or July, their registration would just be for that year.
Okay. And so looking at the website now, where there's there's a list of registered leaf blower operators. And then there's a list of leaf blower compliant compliant/violation.
Right,
And
Is it complaint violation?
no, compliant,
so it's both, but I can't quite tell if so right now for 2025, there's under details, there's only five companies on the list, and are they
5 companies on the list that were compliant.
I can't tell if they're compliant ones or violator ones. And I'm not sure how to tell.
Well, from the list I have so far this year, I have 7 that were so when Chuck goes out there and he sees blowers working, he'll stop, he'll go look at their machine.
Right.
And if they're compliant, he marks it down as compliant, so we can keep track that, hey, yeah, these companies are being compliant, they are registered, and they're using compliant machines. And he just checks it off on the NewGov site for that particular address, and he just goes on his way.
Okay, but if this is is this where a homeowner would go to
Yeah.
check if the company?
If they're
that they
registered,
hired-
yeah.
And, so how do you tell, oh wait, maybe there's more columns here, let's see, phone number, okay, there's a violation, type of violation, fine number, okay, it's in the columns, you have to scroll sideways. for it.
It's a long spreadsheet, and a lot of times you even have to go all the way to the bottom to find out, and then scroll over.
Actually, it's in the, yeah, if you scroll, it's the third column from the right, about, I don't know, 15 or 20 columns.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Okay, so it shows that three are compliant and 2 are not compliant.
Can I ask a question about
Well, I
that?
have counsel, about that?
Yeah.
All right.
Does your website allow the homeowner to go easily to find out who's not just registered, but who is, if a registered landscaper is suspended? I mean, do they get removed? I just need to.
They don't get removed, but I believe, and I would have to double check, but I believe it will mark them as suspended.
Okay, can you check that? Because I think it's
Okay.
important if somebody's still.
Page. So it shows that, like, they've been fined.
Yes.
That's not, so a homeowner could use somebody who's gotten a fine as long as they haven't been suspended.
Homeowner can use somebody, as long as they're registered, they can still have one fine, and they can still continue to use their blower and do whatever work they have. Yeah. If they do get another fine throughout the year, then, and what we don't do is, if let's just say, Chuck went there, they were registered, but they were using a blower in the summer during the summer ban, and it was over 65. That's actually 2 violations, but we count that as 1.
Mhm.
Okay, so if we come back the following week and we catch them again, that would be their second violation. And then they would be suspended. We don't gain about the one stop and say they got $900 worth of fines. We only count that as 1 violation to be considered for suspension.
Okay. Well, like, okay, so the one on the list here that violation number 1 was over 65 decibels.
Yep.
Because that's already this year, right? And then the second violation is unregistered.
Right.
So.
So that would only be counted as 1 violation. When I say 1 violation, I mean 1 that would count towards a suspension, even though there were two tickets issued.
This shows up as violation number 1 and violation number 2. So is that,
If it was done on the same day,
okay?
it's only counts as 1 towards their suspension.
Oh, so you can't tell on here.
I don't know if you could tell when those tickets were written.
I guess I have to look them up on the other chart.
Yeah.
It doesn't have dates. Violations. And they were both warnings.
So they're allowed a warning.
All right, Julie, why don't you keep looking through, see what you want to ask about, but let me go to Councilor Farrell, who has a question. You're looking it up.
You
We're allowed
know, I'm very new to all of this, although I certainly heard about the leaf blower issues. Homeowners are supposed to register also, even if they don't, I mean, if they're doing their own yard work,
No,
they're not.
No,
They can
homeowners- Homeowners are supposed to select from the list of registered.
But if they don't, they
If
want
they
to do their own
don't-
yard work.
If
Can
they don't,
use a red max?
No.
no,
Okay, so that would be a violation should somebody ever call them. And the homeowners pay the tickets?
only if the homeowner is fined. Sometimes the homeowners may pay the tickets for the landscaper just for whatever reason. I don't know.
But it's the landscaper that gets fined.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to pay the ticket.
Right, and after I believe 2 violations, the homeowner gets a fine. If they continue to use.
Have you seen a reduction in complaints since the red max was identified as a significant culprit?
Oh, I think we've seen a big reduction in.
Really?
Almost 100% of the commercial landscapers, that's all they used were red max. it's a better machine, meaning it's more powerful, they can get their work done quicker. So, you know, they want to use that machine to go on to the next job. I mean, time is money.
Right. And,
Yeah.
and blowers are by definition louder than mowers.
Oh, I don't,
I mean, why are we picking on blowers? I've heard some pretty loud mowers.
yeah, I mean, I
That's
don't,
that's what
I
the
can tell you,
ordinance graphic,
yeah, I can tell you that, blowers are, have to have a tag on it. Mowers, I don't believe have to have any type of, sound.
So people complain about the blowers, but they don't complain about the mowers.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Right. Interesting.
I can give you offline, there's a lot of history here.
I've heard there is, but so I'm trying to tread lightly on some of this just to get the basic information. I mean, I just think this is amazing. One person tracks all this stuff. I mean,
One
down the
person.
road.
One person, pretty much polices for it.
Yikes.
It's a much improved since they did.
Since there was no.
Because Mr. Enright is a former police officer.
Retired.
So he is, but he is, very good about this sort of thing. And the only problem I have is he's only 20 hours a week.
Right.
Frankly, I would like him longer and more time, because I think we get higher levels of compliance. And basically, that's the whole purpose of this. We're not trying to raise money. We're trying to get people into playing
Right.
by the rules.
Right.
And
I do believe we're doing that. I'd love to have 100% compliance, but it's the same thing that, people still run red lights when they're supposed to be stopped. I mean, and they run through stop signs, even though that is the law. Just using that as an example. Landscapers are going to use blowers that aren't compliant.
Well, maybe some of them you can share the history of why blowers are more of a culprit than a mower.
Well, the mowers are generally, for a while, the mowers are 4-cycle in most cases. Blowers are 2-cycle for a lot of times, which are noisier, and the degree of air pollution that they produce is significant compared to a mower. A mower is lower to the ground. This stirs up not only the ground, but the air around. Cambridge has gone to an all-electric ordinance. That's what I was going to ask next, Mr. Chairman, just about where we go. But before we do that, I want to yield to my colleagues. I have a couple of questions.
I don't see any other questions. I was going to ask if there were, maybe this gets into your question, but I was going to ask if there were any improvements, concerns, deficiencies that you all have noticed or changes you would like to see with the ordinance. Right, enforcement,
That was my question, and then I have another question.
I'm not particularly fond of the suspension of of suspending the landscapers. It seems like towards the end of the year, a lot of them get suspended. It really doesn't do anything, because at that point in time, the suspension ends up, the time allotted ends up going by, like in January. They're done with it, which there's really no real payment for that.
But
The end of the season.
But that would come after a second
Right.
violation, and they would
Right.
still have to pay that fine before they could re-register the next
Right.
year, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's really a pain to keep track of. So a lot of things that we have to watch out for. So when these tickets are appealable, okay, and so if they're suspended, they have to let us know within 21 days if they're going to appeal the ticket. If they're going to appeal the ticket, they are not suspended. So we found out this year that landscapers in November appealed a ticket that had suspended that landscaper, yet they didn't get their court date until it was like February or March. So even though they were suspended, they weren't suspended, because we can't suspend them if they're appealed. Okay, so it's a real arduous process to keep track of. With really, I think the penalty for them, if you want to call it, it wouldn't be the suspension, that you can't just register the following year until those tickets are paid.
Yeah,
Was there, I
I
forgot if
think
there was
that,
an enforcement action beyond suspension, wasn't there like a multiple year removal or something?
There's a year suspension if they get caught again while on suspension, I believe. I'd have to double check the ordinance. But
So, I mean, all I'm suggesting is if we review the suspension component of this, I want to see what down the line that would impact.
yeah, it was something I wanted to talk with the law department about.
Okay.
You know, about
Okay.
reviewing the suspension and either doing away with it altogether and having the penalty just, hey, you're just gonna continue to get tickets if you're not gonna abide by this, because whether they're suspended or not, if they're gonna continue to, if they're a repeat offender, they keep using it, they keep doing it, it's sort of in our face. There's not a whole lot that we can do about it. If they're gonna do it, they're gonna do it. Okay, I think that in the end would be taking these, the landscapers to court if they're gonna be repeat offenders, like the 5 or 6 that we're gonna be taking, relatively soon, once we get a court date.
Yeah.
And then finding them, it's a criminal complaint now, it's not a joke, you know? It's unfortunate that they take it that far, but there are a few that do.
Because I mean, as Council Baker has pointed out several times, the goal was compliance.
Right.
And so I do think all of our remedies and the components of the ordinance should be geared towards compliance. I don't know if that, takes a couple of years for it to kick in or for folks to get the hang of it or what, but I think Council Baker's done a good job reminding us of that.
Yeah.
So, see, we have a couple more. Let's try not to go all night, but Council Baker first, then Malachi.
so, on the question though of enhancement, if you are suspended and then can't register the next year, until, I guess the question is there any carryover value? Because you said the record is purged each year.
Right.
So everybody gets a free ride in a sense to try again. I guess the question I would ask you to reflect on is whether there's any pattern of violation, of cumulative violations that basically says that, you're not going to be able to register, and if you're out operating at all, it's not just whether you're using a non-compliant leaf blower. If you're operating at all with the equipment, you're going to get a fine.
Oh, absolutely.
And because it seems to me, the easier to enforce. You don't have to worry about just whether it's the right machine or not. It's the
At that point, if it's that repeat offender, it'll be a ticket every time.
Yeah, and so I think there is value in having the suspension for that reason, but it may be that we need to make the ordinance clear that the suspension will carry over into the next year, or some mechanism to allow you to make the fine for conduct that is not just the leaf blower operation. I mean, the leaf blower machine, but the fact that you're violating your permit, you're not operating without a permit.
So they would get a fine for not being registered and for operating even if it was a compliant machine, so not registered. If it was a non-compliant machine, they would get a ticket for that also. And if it was during the summer ban, it would be a $900 ticket.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, you've indicated that suspension is sort of a challenge. And is there a version of the suspension that would make your enforcement and compliance easier? That's what I'm asking.
Right.
And I don't know the answer to that, but I would ask you to reflect on it.
Yeah, like I said, I just by watching over the past 2 years on how suspensions occur, the bulk of your suspensions always happen at the end of the year during fall cleanups, where these guys are trying to get it all done before the snow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've seen them with the blowers that are actually on wheels. It's like this thing doesn't comply with anything. Okay, and they're just going as fast as they can, and we ticket them, they're suspended, and typically it's the end of the season. That suspension just wanes through December, January, and then they pay their fines and they re-register in the spring. I think if the suspension maybe wasn't there, it's something that we have to talk, like I said, with a lot of department and see what might work best.
Okay, well, I think that's worth having a conversation offline. And again, we're trying to get to compliance.
Right.
The last question I have, Chairman, on this issue is just the transition. I'm curious about Cambridge and what they're doing, and a number of counselors have said that they felt that the gas-powered leaf blower is no longer desirable part of the landscape, so to speak. Do you have any feeling from your colleagues in Cambridge about what's going on?
I have not talked with them.
Do you have, I'm sorry, but do you have any idea power differential is?
I don't, although that I remember reading but the electric blowers have gotten more effective, you know. So my understanding is that they can do the job. The question is not the power, the question is the battery life.
Yes.
And they still have to be compliant to the 65 decibel,
Right.
Yeah.
Right, even if it's electric.
even if it's electric.
But there have been people who've been concerned about the fact that the gas powered blowers are in fact a more polluting unit and noisier than the electrics are in general terms, even though, you know, 65 rating, it sounds different. And the summertime, you know, how it feels in the summer compared to the fall.
Yeah, I think in the summer, I think electric blow is fine because you're not really blowing a lot of leaves around. You usually just blow the grass clippings off the walkway or off the driveway, you know, things to that effect, or getting there. I know when they fertilize, they gotta have that. They gotta get the fertilizer off the hard top and onto the grass. It gets spread it onto the driveway or sidewalk. It's a rule for landscapers apparently. So
But that's easy with electric.
yeah, that's easy.
So I guess my hope is that you would look at the suspension and also look at the coordination of information. I just think, again, you've got a real opportunity between the two departments to minimize the amount of work you both have to do.
Councilor Matthew, do you have a last?
Yeah, okay, just to be clear, if a worker does a violation that goes to the company, a different worker of the same company gets a violation, that counts to the company, right?
On different days,
On different days?
yes,
Okay,
that would be a suspension.
but what about like two different addresses on the same day? Aren't those two separate violations?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Yeah.
And on the suspension, okay, so if the company is suspended and they keep doing the fall cleanups or whatever, every time if they're legitimately caught in the act of doing it, they get another ticket.
Yep.
Right, and it includes,
I believe if they get another ticket during that 60-day suspension, they may be suspended for a year,
okay, that would kick in the 1 year.
for 1 year.
Right. And is there, how many levels of dollar amount of fine are there? Just the.
If they were gonna have the highest amount, it's a $900 fine.
Okay, and that's for.
So
everybody else
unregistered,
suspended?
summer ban, and over the 65 decibel.
So all three would get you.
Yeah, we've issued plenty $900.
Okay, and if you get the same company doing that a second time while suspended, does it go up any higher, or it's just?
No, it's
900?
yeah, it's a
We can't pay
300
more
per,
than $300.
can't charge more than that.
Oh, right.
Although I do believe City of Newton's trying to push up. Yeah.
Well, the Mass Municipal Association started and filed an amendment to raise the civil fine to $500. Because it was
300 for
it was 300 for, yeah.
All right, so my recommendation here is that we hold the item and come back, you know, either summer or after the summer and see how things are going, but if anyone wanted to make a motion, now would be the time. Oh, go ahead, Councilor Carroll.
A significant number of landscapers who you know are in trouble.
Yeah, we sort of know,
Percentage-wise.
yeah, we sort of know who they have, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, is it of this whole list, is it a significant percentage?
No, I probably want to say there's, you know, maybe 8 or 10 that are just, you know, flagrant.
Thank you.
I've had a landscaper tell me that he just passes the fine on.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why I think the homeowner initiative is going to be important is that if the homeowner pays it and it's hidden in the bill, it doesn't register. If the fine comes to the homeowner directly, then it feels different.
This
It's
is why we,
economically exactly the same.
this is why we, you know, put in the door knockers.
Right.
Just to let the homeowners know what's happening here. And we've had them say, oh, no, that's not us. That he doesn't work for us. Although they may have been working at a neighbor's house. So we've had sometimes where there's been mix-ups, but, we're pretty accurate.
Did you say the fine does go to a homeowner?
Yeah, it can be
And
a fine that goes to a homeowner.
If they're using an unregistered.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That was a choice we made. We didn't make it automatic with the homeowner. Have to be, we want the landscapers to register, and if they're suspended, they're unregistered, they're treated as unregistered.
Right.
I understand. So the suspension still has some value because then it means the homeowner can be liable. And that's part of the enforcement package.
Yeah.
Again, we don't want homeowners paying these fines. We want them to get their landscape.
Ideally, we want to notify the homeowner that the landscaper they're using is not registered. You should be hiring landscapers that are registered.
Yeah.
All right, can I get a motion?
All motion to vote?
Counselor Oliver has moved hold.
Yeah,
Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor of hold, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Once again, thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The information is incredibly helpful.
Yeah,
So I
good.
love when you guys send that.
Good.
I think we need to sort of do a documented discussion to get the update. It can't just be a written update for,
Yep.
various purposes.
Yep.
But it's super helpful, I think, in advance of the meetings.
Great.
So thank you.
Yeah, I'm sort of last minute, so, but I was able to get it out to them.
With that, I believe we are adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you and I get